Monday, April 28th, 2025. I hope you had a happy weekend. Back to the grind Monday morning. Thank you for making me part of your day, all that. Smash up the like button, subscribe to the channel. But let's go ahead and dive on in. So we have Swiss block here. Bitcoin's decoupling from equities is confirmed. Even if sentiment around the trade war shifts, Bitcoin won't be heavily affected. In fact, like gold, it could strengthen. Upside pressure is brewing. Okay, so last Monday, actually, I made a video talking about how just something kind of clicked in my mind where, let's go back to the January 1st, 2025. If you had told me that the NASDAQ was going to peak in late February, and then go down 26%, which is what it did, and then you asked me to guess where I thought Bitcoin's price was going to be, I would have guessed something like $50,000 to $60,000 because Bitcoin has been so heavily correlated to the NASDAQ and to the the Russell 2000, the S&P 500, that it just would have made sense. That's how it's been for quite a while. And so something interesting, I just realized, like, Bitcoin was at $84,000 last Monday. It should have been much lower than it was, but it was showing a lot of strength in comparison to the NASDAQ, to the S&P, et cetera. And so we have just even more evidence here. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sorry. I don't quite understand this chart, aside from the fact, like, the blue dot is more over in the left direction than it's been in quite a while. And so, cool, man. You know, that's market sensitivity. Okay, market sensitivity, negative sensitivity, more on the negative side. First time being on the negative side than the positive side. All right, let's do this. And I talked about last week about the trade after the trade one being gold and the trade after the trade being Bitcoin. And we saw heavy spot Bitcoin ETF flows last week. So maybe that's institutional investing looking for that trade after the trade. And maybe that would explain why we could see a lower high in the stock market, although I do believe we're heading to a bear market. We're in a bear market, but heading to a series of lower lows and lower highs in the stock market. But we could still put in a new all-time high with Bitcoin. Let's have our fingers crossed on that. But moving on, sentiment, Bitcoin's value has jumped 11.2%, and this has once again coincided with key whales and sharks adding to their already enormous bags. Wallets holding 10 to 10,000 Bitcoin have added 19,255 more coins in this short stretch, and continue to be one of crypto's most powerful indicators. So when is the beginning of this? This is January. They've just been adding. They've been adding to their stacks. 19,255. That's 0.1%, about a little under 0.1%. That's significant, okay? And I'm curious about this response here. That kind of synchronized accumulation by 10 to 10K Bitcoin wallets is hard to ignore. When seasoned players quietly increase exposure during consolidation phases, it often signals deeper conviction. It's not just price action, it's what smart money does during that action. Watching supply dynamics alongside on-chain activity remains key. Okay. So a question that I'm thinking out loud is I would love to see this chart dating back to 2022 to see what they were doing. And I don't have that information with me now, but if you could remind me in the comment section of this video, I will look for that information. All right, moving on. Zhao Wedson. This is the second video that I've posted content of his. More kind of whale type information here. 27,750 Bitcoin just left Binance. This is the third largest Bitcoin outflow in the exchange's history. Significant amount of Bitcoin leaving exchanges. While large outflows don't automatically signal a price rally, they do indicate strong institutional activity, which often precedes major volatility. Historical context: in 2021, massive outflows didn't prevent the dump triggered by China's crypto ban from April to May of 2021. On the other hand, continuous outflows over several days, like during the FTX collapse, signaled the bottom and recovery. The takeaway: it's not the single event that matters, but the ongoing reserved trend. Lots of trends, lots of historic trends. Last time this happened was late 2022, early 2023. Bitcoin rallied significantly at that time. Another time significant outflow was at the end of 2021. So again, I mean, Zhao Wedson, he's not saying that this is straight to the moon, super bullish, but it's a thing. Everything is something. Just in Bitcoin Magazine, ARK Invest updates their 2030 Bitcoin price prediction to $2.4 million. Okay, thank you, ARK Invest. I want to tell you something. Bitcoin is not going to be $2.4 million in 2030. It's not going to happen. And I know it's a dangerous thing to criticize women. ARK Invest, led by Cathie Wood. Cathie Wood is a retail investor with a lot of money, a retail investor with a lot of backing. Okay. She's a bit of a grifter, I'm sorry to say. I am so far off. I don't think Bitcoin is going to be anywhere near $1 million in 2030. But thinking about things, here's an invalidation of that. I know somebody who believes that Bitcoin is going to hit $600,000 in 2025. If that ends up happening, then sure, I'm the grifter, okay? And Cathie Wood, I apologize, but otherwise, no. You buy the things that people get hyped up about, and whatever. Another interesting chart: asset bubbles of the past 50 years. Okay, so we have gold, the gold asset bubble, late 70s to early 80s, which we're going to experience something like this over the next decade. We have Japan, late 80s. I don't remember that. I was very young in the late 80s. We have Asia in general in the 90s. We have the dot-com boom in the late 90s. Housing, definitely remember that. The aughts. China in the aughts, a significant climb in China in the dump. We have biotech in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. We have ARK and Bitcoin. So I remember that. I bought the peak of ARK. So maybe I'm a little bit biased. I'm sorry, Cathie Woods. Maybe I'm a little biased. I bought the peak of ARK in 2021. And we have Bitcoin. So something really interesting about this chart is like Bitcoin asset bubbles of the last 50 years. This is going to 2021. Bitcoin's gone much higher since then. And I've seen lots of charts. I actually made a funny video on TikTok, kind of stressing out, like fake stressing out, like, oh no, is this a bubble? If this is a bubble, then, people are going to lose lots and lots of money. And then the next chart in that video was a continuation of that, oh no, is this a bubble kind of thing. And it showed Bitcoin going to $69,000 in 2021. So why is Bitcoin, I don't know, man. I don't know. But then, hey, Magnificent Seven. And I do believe that the Magnificent Seven is a bubble right now and that it has a fair amount down to go. So we'll see. We'll see about that. But what's the deal? What's the deal with Bitcoin only going to 2021? All right, Danny, Mega Bull post here. Altcoins just hit their first golden cross since 2021. Last time this setup hit, low caps pumped 100,000% in 5 days. That's an exaggeration. Sure, there was probably some random cryptocurrency that pumped 100,000% in 5 days. Good luck getting that. The next alt season ignites April 26th. Okay, you're watching this on April 28th. Do you feel it? Do you feel the alt season? Okay, so your shot at millionaire status starts now. Here's a list of under-the-radar alts with 300x potential. So I do want to look at the alts. Okay, Golden Cross, cool, man. Last time this Golden Cross happened was April 19th of 2021. And the peak of altcoin euphoria came in May. It actually was 3 weeks later. All right, so we did put in a higher high in the total altcoin market cap in November of 2021. But the real excitement with altcoins literally came 3 weeks later in 2021. So could that be what we're going to experience this time around as well? We'll see. He's projecting, of course, the end of 2025 is going to be this amazing lights out. Oh my goodness, everything's going to go insane, 300x potential. So let's see what we have here. First, we have the Golden Cross. Okay, what Athena is the first one. So Athena is going to 300x. No, it's a $1.92 billion market cap crypto. Okay, so what about Fetch? Is Fetch going to 300x? Price 61 cents, 1.47 billion. I've said before, and I stand by this, I'm not a fan of buying AI cryptos all that much right now because of the fact that they're going to follow NVIDIA's lead, and NVIDIA's in a clear bear market. And so, okay, Fetch AI, 1.47 billion. It's not going up to $500 billion. How about Virtual, 504 million? So that's going to go up to 1.5 trillion? No, I don't know. I'm blanking right now. Let me think. 100x. A 100x from 504 million would be 50 billion. Yeah, so it would be 1.150 billion for virtual. That seems like a stretch, but 504 million, I could see virtual is doing well. We'll see, but not 300x, and definitely not 300x for Ondo. Although, listen, I like some of these picks. It's insane to me that this guy's calling for 300x. Chainlink, absolutely not. 9.7 billion, 9.76 billion. None of these are anywhere close to 300x's. Ravencoin, ARC, I'm not familiar with ARC. Okay, so maybe because artificial intelligence project, build next generation decentralized infrastructure. Okay, I'm not super familiar with it. $52 million market cap. I'm not betting on 300x, but whatever. Athena, not Athena, Ether. None of these are 300x's, guys. All right. If I were to buy any of these, I would buy expecting a few x's, maybe. It depends on the crypto. Like Chainlink, I'm not expecting it to double. But anyway, all right, look at this chart too. All right, you see this last golden cross in 2021. Look at how well the altcoins did leading up to April of 2021. If you remember the first part of 2021, it was very exciting for altcoins. And for Bitcoin, but especially for altcoins. And a lot of those altcoins, they peaked actually before April 19th of 2021. What we saw after April 19th was Ethereum went crazy. Dogecoin went absolutely ballistic. Shiba Inu just was off the charts insane. So it was things like that. But some cryptos actually peaked before April 19th of 2021 and then did not come back in November. So, okay. That's a moon boy chart. But speaking of altcoins, hey, here's an altcoin that this chart really adds some perspective. My goodness, what a run for Sooie. This is just over the last few days, but here's the top performers over the last few days. Here we have Sooie, and then 69%, up 69%. Is this in the Bitcoin valuation? I think it's just Sooie. All right, and then we have Ondo, number 2, Pepe, Cardano, HBAR, Doge, XLM. This is not a composite list, not a complete list. It's just a list of some of the larger ones. So Sooie, man, leading the charge. That's a good sign. Now I know I sold my Sooie. I bought some at 215 on Monday of last week. I sold at 326 on I think it was that on Thursday of last week, and maybe I'll end up regretting that, but I put a big bag for my standards into Sooie, and I enjoyed the profits that I got. That's what you got to do. Seeing this chart, do I second guess myself? Not so much, but interesting. So Sooie, the Sooie Bitcoin chart, you can see it's just what a run over last week for Sooie. And actually, this has been a really solid performer. I wonder if I could draw a fib chart here just to see what Sooie looks like in its potential. I wouldn't be surprised if Sooie did hit a new all-time high in its Bitcoin valuation. We'll see. So off to the races for sure. Okay, all right, 618 retrace, getting right up there. So something to keep on your radar, but I would expect Sooie to outperform Bitcoin some more. That it's not it for Sooie. I know a lot of people say Sooie. I call it Sooie. I don't care. All right, moving on. All right, we are done with crypto for this video. But Guilherme Tavares, yields are more likely to crash in the coming months, not the opposite. I agree with this. All right, I very much agree with this because, all the projections for lowering rates, the Federal Reserve is going to lower rates in 2025. It just depends on how much they're going to do it. I've seen estimates of lowering rates to around 300 to 325 basis points. It's at 425 to 450 right now. So, 1.25% for the remainder of the year. That should be accompanied by the 10-year yield going down. And really interesting, I shared a chart yesterday talking about the copper-gold ratio. So this is something I need more information about, the copper-gold ratio, because I shared a chart showing correlations between copper-gold and Bitcoin. Well, here's a correlation, copper-gold and the 10-year yield. And that this indicator, just like with the chart I shared yesterday, is a forward-looking indicator that copper gold is showing us where we're going next with the 10-year yield, just like it was showing us where we're going next with Bitcoin. So again, this is something I'm going to do more research on. I don't have enough of a feel for what the significance of the copper gold ratio is. Aside from, I know, copper, that's very industrial, and gold is more store value, more of a safe haven. So we'll see. If you have any information about that, let me know in the comment section of this video. This is a fascinating, my goodness. Okay. This is another forward-looking indicator, but it is crude oil set forward 10 years. Man, 10 years. Okay, so a lot of people think we are in a bear market now because of what President Trump is doing, and it is understandable that people would believe that, but crude oil's 10-year leading indication has been working to foretell the movements of stocks since the 1890s. I mean, that's quite a history. All right, since the 1890s, and it has been saying for almost a decade that a bear market was due in 2025. The actions of the president, Congress, or the Fed can only serve to dampen or amplify, that's been my argument, what was already going to be happening anyway. A couple caveats. First, the stock market echoes do not always come exactly 10 years after the movements in oil prices. The lag time can vary slightly, and the magnitudes of the movements also do not necessarily have to match, even though the timing does. Second, weird exogenous events like wars or pandemics can bend oil prices in ways that don't get echoed by the stocks. The Dow Jones did not echo the 1990 Gulf War spike in oil, and I expect that stocks will also not echo oil's 2020 COVID crash. That would make sense. You have to just put your thumb over that part of the chart. But the 2014-2016 oil price decline is seeing its echo now in stocks as it is supposed to. It just got a bit of a late start because traders thought Trump would get elected and fix everything. So they bid up stocks to February 2025. Now stocks are making up for lost time. So how much do we crash here? You know, it's a question that we really need to take into consideration. How much do we dump? Given looking back 10 years, that's quite a significant drop. And that leads us to a bottoming in January of 2016, which kind of lines up with what I've been thinking, bottoming of the stock market in January 2016 or in or around January 2016. Really interesting. I mean, I'd never, okay. You now know as much about this indicator as I do. I have never once considered this or even known about it. But another thing, right? Another thing to pay attention to. So good luck Bitcoin, good luck crypto if the stock market bottoms out in January 2016, All right, moving on. At this point, it's not a question of if we are in a recession. It's a question of how severe it will be and how long it will last. So Richmond Manufacturing Survey, expected manufacturing new orders, SA mid-price 26. You can see we've dropped a lot in 2025. And I bring this up not because of anything in particular with Michael Arouet. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. But this is a big, big thing that Raoul Pal pays attention to. Some of you have drawn my attention to some of his content when it comes to looking at manufacturing as a bigger correlator to the price of Bitcoin than anything else. This is not a good sign, and this is something that I would think, if Raoul Pal is being consistent, that he would also say is not a good sign for the price of Bitcoin at some point. I mean, it's not like now, these are expectations, okay? It's not actual manufacturing, it's expectations. But at some point, I would think the writing's going to be on the wall. This is lower than COVID crash. My goodness. Now we could bounce right back up just like we did in the COVID crash. We'll see. All right. Lastly, but not least, and this has nothing to do with stocks or crypto, but it's a thing that I have strong opinions on, and I want to give my opinion. Now comes the Womanosphere, the anti-feminist media telling women to be thin, fertile, and Republican. A crop of conservative personalities such as Brett Cooper and Candace Owens and outlets like Evie are convincing young women of gender essentialist worldview. Yes. Okay. Thin, fertile, and Republican sounds hot. LOL. Brett Cooper. I have no idea who this is. Thin, fertile, and Republican. Here's what I want to say. Okay. Quiet spirit. This is what I looked for in a wife. I have an amazing wife. This is what I'm looking for the wives of all of my sons when they become adults. This is good. It is beautiful. It is a thing that has existed for the entirety of human history. I pity any man who has a loud, obnoxious wife. If you have a loud, obnoxious wife, I pity you to no end. That's not a good thing. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week, and I will most certainly be seeing you, if you don't unsubscribe, in another video. Peace.